matchup, and it is going to be Hunter Warrior Druid up against Druid Warlock Warrior. So the exact same matchups that we saw in the first series.
Wow, okay.
Interestingly, because Greensheep didn't ban Shaman last week. He was the only player not to ban Shaman, and
changed his mind.
HelloLeeroy brought Warrior this week. Last week he had Mage, and I didn't know whether he brought Warrior thinking, okay, well if I bring Warrior, Greensheep will ban it, because he banned it last week, and that will allow me to play my Shaman deck, but clearly not. Shaman is going to be banned this time. I think Greensheep learnt his lesson.
I think just bringing both Warrior and Shaman gives you basically the best of both worlds. They ban your Shaman, you get your Warrior. They ban your Warrior, you get your Shaman. You kind of want to have both of these decks. Interesting that I think this will be discard lock coming out from Greensheep. He ran it last week. It is still popular in terms of its competitive viability, so I imagine that might come through from him. What's interesting for me for HelloLeeroy, however, he's finally not brought Mage. I think this is one of the first weeks in about 1 and a bit seasons of the Premiership. Yeah, ever, that we've not seen him bring a Mage. And I guess against Greensheep, he's tailored his lineup, like you said. He's specifically brought things that he thinks will do well. Interesting that he's brought exactly the same lineup against the Jambray Cypher matchup that he's brought into Greensheep as well.
And I think that's one of the characteristic things about HelloLeeroy is he loves to build counter matchups, and that was one of the things. I mean, we mentioned last season that he had that really weird mage that didn't really quite fit into it. Was this like semi-tempo, semi-control. It was nobody really knew quite what it was, but that had been tailored specifically, but never actually found the deck that it was looking to beat. So we know that he likes to go for that kind of thing. But now that we've seen the decks, I'm going to ask you guys for predictions once more before we jump into this series. Kiernan, we'll start with you this time. Who do you think is going to be able to take this one?
3-1 HelloLeeroy.
3-0 HelloLeeroy.
Well, those are some pretty quick predictions coming on out. I'm going to go with Greensheep.
Oh,
I'm going to stick to the older players here. I've got a theme going tonight apparently, but I think I think experience matters in these kind of scenarios, and maybe now that HelloLeeroy stepped away from his trusted mage, maybe that could be an issue for him. I doubt it, but never. It could be the case. We'll have to wait and see. I'm curious to see how Greensheep plays this one out as well, and especially whether that Warlock is going to be the Disco Lock. I would expect it to be that kind of discard zoo that we've seen so much of.
Well, it's the same classes as he brought last week. So last week he had Dragon Warrior, he had discard zoo, and then we didn't get to see the Druid because he never got to play it, and we didn't get to see the Shaman because it got banned. So it's whether he just sticks with his guns and what he's confident with or not.
This is an interesting point that Dan has raised here. Greensheep always tends to run with the same roster. Throughout Season 1 of the ESL Premiership, without fail, he almost brought the exact same roster every single week. So that's an interesting one, and we're going to finally first see it's Yogg, Druid, maybe Malagos variant because it's got the Moonfire, we would imagine, and it's going up against what looks to be a control-type warrior coming out from HelloLeeroy here.
Yep, does look like Control Warrior, definitely, and as you said, the Moonfire probably means it is, well, definitely means it is Malagos Druid. It depends whether it's going to be the Malagos Token Druid. There's 2 Druids at the moment. There's Malagos Token, which obviously has the Violet Teacher as well, and the Power of the Wild, but there is just the Malagos variant, which just likes to ramp up and has like the Moonglade Portal and stuff like that in it. Not the best opening hand for HelloLeeroy. I mean, it gets a revenge, but I mean, I guess when you're playing against a Malagos Druid, you're not really too worried about getting those early removals. You're just going to be saving it for your kind of mid to late game. So that Justicar on turn 6 is going to be massive for him.
Well, not the greatest of selections here.
No.
Between the spells. To be honest,
I like Starfire.
I like Starfire, though.
He's actually going to go for Bite, though. So I think deciding that he wants to be able to control the board a little bit, and as well, I think that decision is based off, okay, what warrior am I going to be against? It's quite likely to be Dragon Warrior, so we'll go for this to control the board.
The interesting thing about this particular choice, though, is it actually does kind of well into both. It's a little bit more of the medium between dealing with both Control and Dragon Warrior, so I don't mind this selection as well. If he knew it was Control Warrior, Starfire would have been better, obviously, but against Dragon Warrior, it's probably too slow, so this is a bit more of a medium between the two.
Furry Warwick's up the top for Leeroy. You might have seen him shushing to the camera earlier to say, I actually have nothing in my hand I can play for a few turns. Don't tell Greensheep, please. But I mean, Greensheep has nothing he can put on the board either, so this could be a wait until turn 5 and then someone finally puts something on the board. Greensheep will nourish. I wouldn't be surprised if he ramps up, or is he going to draw cards here? Clearly he's looked at his hand and said, okay, so he's probably Control Warrior. I need to kind of make the move here.
For sure, you want to start putting down threats as soon as physically possible. Can't really rely on only Yogg-Saron to win this particular matchup, so...
And that's the thing as well. Malygos obviously can only do so much damage.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much it is exactly. It's something like 27 with both Moonfires and both Living Roots. Obviously, you can pick up...
28.
You can pick up extra things here and there from your spells, from the Raven Idols, but you're going to be thinking, look, okay, it's Fatigue Warrior. He is going to get to a life total that really won't be kind of shuddered by my Malygos. Yeah.
What do you think about the innovate into Arcane Giant here? Because that's essentially doing what you said. It's starting the threats out, but given how much the Warrior has drawn and how much we have seen him play, you know, in terms of zero, you have to imagine there is going to be some form of hard removal here. And there isn't many cards in the Malygos Druid deck that really require super hard removal. So immediately this is going to be throwing something down onto the board for HelloLeeroy to kind of deal with at his whim. His choice is, does he want to Shield Slam it, or does he want to Blood to Ichor and Execute, for instance?
I think because it's so easy, you just armor up and Shield Slam here, and you've got 8 armor. I think that's a fairly good play here. I think that's probably what he'll go for. He could even just draw first with Shield Block, but he might... Okay, he's going to go with your play.
Yeah,
he likes the
I
execute.
think one of the things as well, though, is you put that 2/2 on the board.
Yeah.
Right? You've got at least something there to not necessarily threaten your opponent, but you know, it's at least something to work with here. And that's actually the first thing he's managed to put on the board. That's the first thing he's done aside from armor up this game and play that War Axe.
I'm quite worried for Greensheep in this matchup, really.
Do you know what? I think this is why we're seeing more Control Warrior, by the way.
Because it does so well.
Because it does so well into
Druid.
Malygos Druid. Yeah. Because if you, especially with Justicar, which again we're going to see a turn 6 Justicar coming down in a Control Warrior variant, you just start getting well out of range of the combo. And when you have a high life total and you run Brawl, how many bad outcomes can Yogg-Saron really give you for a Control Warrior?
Exactly. Your only hope, really.
Oh my word! This is the Gadgetzan variant.
Yeah. So yeah, it's Malygos Druid with Gadgetzan, and your hope is you play Yogg and he gives you some sort of massive board that maybe like double Call of the Wild or something crazy like that.
But then you go into Brawl, right?
Exactly. It's just, it feels like an uphill battle that he's really going to struggle to win here. He's going to have to save his Living Roots and his Moonfires and every spell he can get.
Interesting that the swipe was used there with Bite in hand. That could have been the answer required to deal with the 6/3 on board. I mean, do you think he's just holding on to that life total, thinking he's going to need every single drop?
I almost feel like that your play might have been better, Munchables, because sometimes Malygos Swipe can be huge for the Malygos Druid, especially if you force all the hard removal out from the Warrior before you drop the Malygos. And where else are you going to use this Bite, really? Maybe to deal with something like a Sylvanas, but...
It's interesting as well because last week HelloLeeroy played Token Druid and he lost to a Fatigue Warrior. It obviously, the same again, it just struggles because it doesn't really put enough on board. Malygos Druid, sorry, not Token Druid.
Do you just play Doomsayer? I mean, what do you really play Doomsayer for the sake of it here? I guess, what are you worried about coming out on turn 9 at Malygos?
Yeah, I think Doomsayer's actually perfectly viable here.
Yeah, because you probably wouldn't play Sylvanas on an empty board. Maybe you're thinking about shield slamming your own Sylvanas later 100%. On. So
you're looking at you're thinking of what you can steal, and I guess Malygos is one of the main things. It's another way of removing that Malygos, right?
Sure.
I wouldn't have been surprised if Greensheep had just kind of hit the concede when he saw Justicar, just like Jamboree did in the last series. But I guess when you have Yogg-Saron in hand, like there's no point giving up. There's one of the Raven Idols, which I think he needs to be searching for maybe those Moonfires, those Living Roots, and just to try and find that extra damage.
So he's going to start cycling now, which is interesting for me, because I felt for a while that he was trying to avoid cycling.
No damage there.
Wrath won't be doing any damage to face anyway.
Imagine if it could. That would change the dynamic of Hearthstone.
Do you go for the Wild Growth and use it right now purely so that you don't get more card draw in your hand?
When you've got Gadgetzan and Auctioneer on board, though, you're signalling that you're searching for win conditions. But I feel like because Tank Up's been coming out so readily, I almost feel like those win conditions are slowly slipping away from you here. Because remember, the max damage that a Druid can do with Malygos is...
It's 26.
26. Is he going to overdraw here regardless? Because he's going to have 10 cards in hand once he gets one of these.
He's going to have to use something.
He then uses cards which are spells, which are going to draw cards anyway.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So he's going to be. It looks like he's going to.
Has
I can't see a way out.
He's not thought about this, I don't think, has he?
Perhaps innovated to. Nope.
Nope. Still
draws.
Spells. Yeah. Yeah, he's. Oh my word! Imagine if Malagos comes down next card. That's just basically GG, you know, disregarding that maybe Yogg has something to do with it, but.
So I think that was possibly the wrong idea for Greensheep there. I don't know what he was. I don't think he considered overdrawing to begin with.
How many cards has he got in hand? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's going to overdraw 1. He could overdraw that Malagos, and then your win condition is completely gone.
Do you just leave this Gadgets and Auctioneer up for HelloLeeroy now? I mean, it's 4 damage on board, but that's going against tank up every single turn. Do you just leave it on board because it's either going to force him to play a minion, or force him to play something like Yogg-Saron when you haven't really played that many spells?
You're also forcing him towards that fatigue at the end as well.
Sure.
You're saying, yeah, okay, you can draw more cards. I mean, I am a fatigue warrior. The idea of my game plan is just to let you draw more cards than me, and then I will beat you because I have so much armor. So I wouldn't be surprised if he just hero powers and then tanks up here, but it depends how worried he is about the amount of damage that Malagos can do.
Also, that's 4 damage every turn, right? So.
Yeah. I think he's a little bit nervous about the fact that would negate his tank up, and against that Melee Druid, you are very, very conscious of the burst, but there goes a Feral Rage. To be honest, looking at the deck list in general, or like thinking of the deck list in general, I think that's one of the best cards that he could have lost.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree with you, Munchables. And now at this point, you have to start thinking about getting rid of cards, and you could cycle with Wrath, but then you have to use your Bite or Feral Rage anyway. That's not a bad card to draw, actually, off the top of the Wrath.
Although it draws another card.
For sure. And then you have to use your Feral Rage afterwards. You've got to use Feral Rage here, Greensheep. Do not be greedy and think that, oh, wait a second, I can use my hero power and get rid of this.
He's also got to be thinking, has he already used an Innovate? I mean, I can't remember if he has.
I don't think so.
If he has both Innovates left, then what the combo that you've got is Malagos into both Moonfires, into Living Roots, into Innovate, and then Swipe. And that is more damage. But he has already used one of those swipes.
He's going to go face. Yeah, he realizes that actually he's got to start getting this life total down, otherwise you rely on only Yogg-Saron to win you the game. Slam's not bad here for HelloLeeroy. That prevents him taking another 4 damage to face. And he's probably not going to be too worried about drawing cards now, given how many cards the Druid started to cycle through. So
I think HelloLeeroy just has to be very patient here and not kind of do something silly, not play Yogg-Saron and think, oh, I'll try and build up a board to win this game. He wins this game if he just plays it out,
Absolutely.
I believe.
I would say so too. I think HelloLeeroy has this game sewn up if he just... you know, let's discount Yogg for a second. He needs to draw a Brawl, I would say, off the back of Yogg, but... I think for the most part, HelloLeeroy has a couple of outs of the Yogg-Saron from Greensheep. He's got his own Yogg-Saron and he's got Brawls, so... I completely agree with you, Dan. I think if he's just sensible and doesn't overdo it, he's safe. May even think about using his Fiery War Axe here and not using his... No, he's got Ironforge Portal. Maybe he can just blast Ironforge Portal at this point in time.
I like Ironforge Portal as well. It just puts something on the board that isn't the Sylvanas that you don't want to use just yet. Well, there you go. There is one of the worst 4 drops you can get.
I think actually almost is the worst 4 drop you can get straight off the bat.
Yeah, I would argue impressively terrible.
It is impressively terrible.
See, on the other end, you could get Dreadsteed, which actually is a fantastic 4 drop to get, because it's just constantly on the board. Mirekeeper will come down, just to get some more bodies on the board, and Greensheep is just desperate to kind of push some damage to HelloLeeroy's face, but I think the life total was just going to get too high. That Justicar from turn 6, I believe, was the swing here, really.
Ravaging Ghoul's going to have a field day here. Maybe even combine it with Revenge, because you have one in hand already and it's not likely you're going to be going below.
You know, yeah, I don't even think Malagos gets you that close just yet. At the moment, Malagos barely gets rid of your armor.
Yeah,
even with the most spell damage that you've got in hand.
I feel like you get rid of Bloodmage Thanos regardless, right? Because it cycles more of Greensheep's deck, and at this point, you're cycling him so quickly that you're not, with your life total, you're not worried about getting fully comboed, and your only real drawback is the Yogg. But the one thing, like I think in the back of HelloLeeroy's mind, is he actually probably needs to start using spells to give his Yogg-Saron a good chance at responding to the Yogg-Saron of the Greensheep. Also, he needs to somehow cycle to get towards a Brawl, because Brawl will be the winning card for him following a disastrous outcome from a Yogg-Saron, for instance.
I always find it amusing, the concept of stacking armor with Hearthstone. It's always like, it conjures this funny picture in my head of just like one orc that's like got 4 full plate armor sets worn at one point, and Malagos finally found though.
Emperor makes a slight difference because it does then reduce the cost of like your swipe, so maybe you're looking at an even bigger combo here.
He's going to go for a bite.
And then innovate into Thanos, I think.
No, because he's got the Doomsayer on board, so he's not going to bother.
Yeah, I don't know. For some reason, my brain seemed to calculate that 5 damage would kill a Doomsayer, and I'm not sure how that worked out, but it's going to be able to get a bit of damage down. The armor is slowly but surely being whittled away here.
Right, so with the Emperor, and if you were able to play Malagos plus Swipe plus Living Roots plus Moonfire, you're looking at about 35 damage roughly off the top of my head. So that is a little bit more, and that is a little bit more scary.
Yeah, I like the Sylvanas, by the way, because it actually combats a lot of stuff that could be played by Greensheep following the next turn. Either it begs some removal, which you've seen him use. You've already seen him use, for instance, Wraths. So you're going to be starting to get towards swipe territory, which is good. If you use it on Sylvanas, that's good. And then also, if he plays Emperor, you shield slam your own Sylvanas. If he plays Malagos, you shield slam your own Sylvanas. If you play Yogg, you could steal anything that he brings into board from Yogg.
But it's worrying you. Now, because Greensheep has got all these tools in his hand, his only win condition is this kind of Malagos plus all this spell power damage. You're worried about playing that Yogg, because if you cast Astral Communion when you play that Yogg...
There's no way you play Yogg before you play your Malagos combo.
That's just game over.
I think you shield slam your own Sylvanas here. Personally.
Yeah, I can certainly see that being a good play. He doesn't have that much other removal in his hand right now if something big does come on out.
True. Actually, what you actually discount... Actually, do you know what? I take back exactly what I said. What are you discounting that's of any value? Why not keep it on board for something like the Malagos or the Yogg-Saron? Excoundrel, you're terrible at this game. But no, yeah, I think actually I prefer the way that HelloLeeroy did that, because why bother stealing the Emperor Therissian? You're only doing it to deny him Emperor Therissian discounts. So by just keeping your Sylvanas on board, you maintain a threat that has an impact regardless of what is played following for Greensheep.
I mean, feel free to count this for me, but I think it's 35 damage he has in hand right now.
Yes,
which clearly isn't enough, and now he's getting rid of that swipe, so that's...
It's down to 26 again.
Yep.
Yeah, I can't say I'm that surprised. This is the opportunity to kill that Sylvanas, and it means that he won't lose those massive minions, which could be something that wins the game, to be honest, later on. It means he could drop that Arcane Giant, and just a couple of major threats now on the board. Not even anything... It's not his win conditions, it's not the ones that are actually going to end the game for him, but it does beg an answer from HelloLeeroy. So now Greensheep, finally, it feels like for the first time this game actually has the tempo.
Yeah, we can see Gorehowl and Shield Slam, but then, you know, you leave Malagos essentially almost open, and you have to draw an execute to be able to deal with it. So
yeah, he needs to save that Shield Slam. I think he's thinking that. He needs to save that Shield Slam for Malagos. He doesn't have those executes, and I mean, you could brawl here and go for the 1 in 3, or at least the 2 in 3. You want to get rid of the 8/8, right?
Yeah, I mean, the very worst scenario is... Actually, this is a really important time for HelloLeeroy, because I think he needs to deal with this 8/8. He's actually going to go for the straight-up brawl, but if the Arcane Giant lives...
Yeah, he might be forced... Sorry. He might be forced to use the Shield Slam if the Arcane Giant doesn't live, but it doesn't! He gets the 1 in 3. Greensheep's not happy about it. Leeroy, of course, is chuckling away to himself. Wham! Gives the guns. So it looks like Greensheep might just do as much damage as he can here and probably either concede afterwards or just say, look, I'm going to put all the damage I can do now, and then I'm going to play Yogg-Saron and see what happens.
Well, Greensheep certainly not worrying about overdrawing anymore. I think that's an issue of the past at this stage. And he's finally broken through the layers and layers of armor, but Leeroy is still sitting pretty on 27 HP.
But it's important because he can't straight up Shield Slam now.
You're right. He can deal with it if he armored up, shield slams. Oh, you've got a 9-Forge portal as well, but he has the Gorehowl. He does have ways of dealing with it.
He can actually deal with it exactly now, because he can Iron Forge portal, tank up, hit your Acolyte in, use your Fiery War Axe and shield slam. But also it's even better if you use your Acolyte first, then draw and execute, then why not? Just go for it.
I think Greensheep here is just hoping. Greensheep saw the Brawl, right? So he's saying, okay, I've seen the Brawl, I'm going to do as much damage as I can. I'm going to try and put Yogg on the board and try and build up a board. I want that double Call of the Wild just to get an incredible board, and hopefully I can still win this game.
That's a great 4-drop, by the way. It's one of the best ones I'd say you could get from... See if he draws Slam. That's a Slam there. He's going to save onto the Slam right now. Uses that. So there isn't a removal specifically for Yogg, but we all know that Yogg can remove itself.
I think Leeroy knows Yogg's coming. He's beginning to pray. And it begins.
Good Divine Spirit for Leeroy. There's the Frost Shock. Explosive Trap. Totemic Might. Totemic your might, boys.
How is that? Sap only goes on enemy minions, so he won't be able to get his own Yogg back from that.
Oh,
and
Yogg's
there goes
gone.
Yogg.
Might be gone, yeah.
Maybe he just gets a few Pyroblasts. Maybe.
There's a lot of irrelevant spells happening right now that really, he just needs a board to be built up.
Everything is awesome. Soulfire and discard the Mire Keeper.
Sprint's not going to help anyone. That's going to be game over.
That's game over, surely. Unless he draws something incredible, or Yogg does something incredible afterwards.
Let's draw more cards.
There we go. There we go. That's game over.
No board built. Greensheep knew it was his only hope, really. And
just goes to show, Yogg-Saron does not win every single game he's ever involved in.
No, but I feel like in that specific scenario, he was pretty far behind before Yogg was played. So that at that point, if Yogg does win you the game, then I feel like that's the 5% chance of it
totally.
really flipping a game on its head.
Well, I mean, usually when Malygos comes down, you're kind of looking at yourself going, oh, am I dead?
Yeah.
And then Leeroy's like, oh, I'm back to full health again.
Yeah,
I just don't have my armor.
Just below 30 HP. And I think this is why, again, you are seeing Control Warrior now come out instead of Dragon Warrior, because Dragon Warrior, unfortunately, as good as it is, does have that chance to lose straight up to a Malygos Druid when it gets the combo, or even just straight up to Yogg. Whereas Control Warrior, in general, by tanking up, by removing threats, by putting your life total well out of that Druid's range, you also really sure yourself against some Yogg scenarios. Like, the worst Yogg case scenarios that you get is it refills the opponent's hand, it builds a board, or it just does straight damage to face. Well, that straight damage to face very rarely happens to the opponent. The worst one in general is clearing, then building a board for the Yogg-Saron's hand, the person who's played the Yogg-Saron. Warriors deal instantaneously with Brawl. And then, obviously, in a fatigue matchup, the Warrior will be happy to have them draw cards. So, in general, Control Warrior has a good matchup against Yogg-Saron. I can't believe I'm saying that out loud. Control Warrior matches up quite well against Yogg-Saron.
We found the counter, boys.
Specifically with tank up, though, you need to have Justicar True Heart.
Absolutely. Well, that first game in this best of 5, I think about the same duration as the first best of 5, all in all. But here we go, Hunter. And it's going to be the Malygos Druid once again for Greensheep. We'll see if he has a little bit more success with it this time around.
Okay, so Scavenging Hyena in the hand of HelloLeeroy. Very interesting. I was surprised he threw away that Abusive Sergeant, actually, because it was a guaranteed 1-drop, but he was rewarded with a Fiery Bat to play on turn 1. And last week, HelloLeeroy bought this mid-range Hunter, but I don't think it had the Scavenging Hyena, unless you can correct me. That seems like a little bit of a tech decision. I mean, I've seen a few decks hovering around trying to make the most of Scavenging Hyena. I mean, Unleash the Hounds plus Scavenging Hyena has always been a deadly combo. Whether it's going to do very well against Malygos Druid, I'm not so sure. Token Druid, perhaps it could work very well.
It's interesting. The thing is, he has to play Scavenging Hyena now. But this does bring out a spell from Greensheep in the form of Living Roots. You're probably going to see Living Roots played here. And that's going to be part of the combo gone.
It is, but I think I had this discussion with you earlier, Munchables, is that are you happy to get rid of a Living Roots at the start of the game? And I think you are in general, especially against a Hunter when they can't build up that armor like a Warrior can.
He's got Argent Horse Rider. Never Huffer. Weak to swipe. coin in hand. Swipe off the top would be lethal for Greensheep, I would say.
So Argent Horse Rider,
probably not quite lethal.
No, but
Yeah, I'll be impressed if you could do 30 damage with a swipe. But yeah, certainly Greensheep right now looking to be in a better situation than it was last game in terms of the matchup in general. But he does have 3 of his hyper late game cards in his hand right now. Obviously the Wrath will be good for just cycling next turn or even just going straight for the Nourish.
This is a nice curve for HelloLeeroy. He can just play the Infested Wolf turn 4, and then his turn 5 is Argent Horse Rider plus Quickshot, or he can just Hero Power, play the High Main next turn, and he's got that option of reloading his hand with Quickshot if he does draw some like lower mana costing minions. But I think Infested Wolf is fine here, and he's just gonna. It looks like you'd think with an Argent Horse Rider in your hand or your deck in general, it's going to be more of this kind of aggro face hunter that we used to see.
He's actually going to see him. Well, we'll have to see what he goes. He's going to ramp pretty heavily here.
Yeah, and that opens up Arcane Giant for next turn as well. Even if he hadn't gone for the Wrath there, it would make his Arcane Giant a viable turn 8.
I feel like that's really slow versus the kind of hunter we're seeing HelloLeeroy bring to the table here, though.
And we saw how well Beast Druid did against Malygos Druid, and I think HelloLeeroy's kind of gone with that same option. He said, look, let's bring some decks that just beats one of the best decks around right now. And he's gone for a deck that counteracts Malygos' play by building up armor, and now he's gone for an aggressive deck that just doesn't let the Malygos Druid ramp up fast enough to kind of deal with him.
Because you can't play Arcane Giant right now, can you? Because if you do, you're probably dead next turn.
Which he is.
Yeah.
He is dead next turn. So now he's going to draw, but what is he going to draw that's going to save him? A Feral Rage and gain 8 more armor, but still you're going to be staring down a barrel that is not a nice barrel to look down.
Living Roost doesn't do anything for you here. I almost feel like this is well, let's just count on board to make sure. He's got 7 on board, then he's got Quickshot, Argent Horse Rider next turn, which is 5. Yeah, even with armor up, he's lethal.
And Leroy knows, and I love this from him. He's brought something that's not kind of as usual. The Face Hunter hasn't really seen that much play.
So I don't know if
he's not actually lethal.
He's not got lethal just
turn.
now. Kill Command would be. But basically he can set up for a singular steady shot to get lethal next turn, so might as well just do that, right?
That's one of the things about playing Hunter, right? Is unless you're against that Warrior or Priest, you can pretty much just guarantee lethal over the course of
he's saying 1 turn. He's like, oh wow, okay, he's going to go this way round.
I suppose you can still use the Quickshot and Horse Rider next turn, right?
Sure.
You'll actually have the mana to do all 3.
Are you punished by Ancient of War, though, right?
That was my thought. Are there any taunts? But there aren't, and HelloLeeroy will go 2-0 up in the series.
He saw the entire deck get cycled last game, and there was no Ancient of Wars.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
So he knew there was no Ancient of Wars.
So that's what the Auctioneer has replaced then. So
yes.
Interesting decision, to be honest, because I know when I've been playing Malygos Druid, the Ancient of War is actually quite a vital tool in stopping the more aggressive decks, actually just whittling you down before you can get to those late game threats.
So you're playing like a true combo deck when you play the Auctioneer. You're really just saying my win condition is Therissian onto my Malygos and those 4 spells. It's like the traditional full combo rogue decks. When you play Ancient of War, it's more you're ramping up, you're playing a bit more, and then Malygos is like this addition at the end. If you somehow get Malygos double Moonfire for lethal at the end, it's great. With the gadget design, you're saying, actually my entire deck principle relies on cycling, and then I have Yogg-Saron tagged on as a get out of jail free card or win more card or whatever you want to call it at the end. So it's kind of how I think Greensheep has tailored his deck to work. I'm not the biggest fan of gadgets and Auctioneer and Malygos Druid, personally.
A lot of people are running it, though.
Yeah,
so
they are.
It's not just Greensheep, but I think you're right. I mean, the Ancient of War, okay, not in that situation, it wouldn't have saved you completely, but you've got to tailor towards every deck that you're going to play, right? And it doesn't feel like that deck is going to work against many aggro decks.
Well, here we go. It's going to be Greensheep looking towards what looks like a very similar deck to what Cypher ran earlier on today, that more traditional zoo, but already with a couple of interesting tweaks to it.
Argent Horse Rider is something that he's run quite consistently in this deck, actually, and Greensheep's one of the only people that do it.
Dark Iron Dwarf as well.
Yeah, Cypher actually ran Dark Iron Dwarf, but again, it's something that not everybody runs.
It's something that was like way back in like beta in the first couple of seasons when it actually gave 2 damage permanently, was in just about every deck in the game. And then once it got nerfed beyond that, it was only really seen in specifically Zoo for a while, and then it even then kind of fell out of favour from that as well.
People started playing Abusive Sergeant instead because it was 1 mana and did the same thing. Because you're not, as Zoo, you're not overly bothered about that 4/4 body on board. The 2 damage to trade up your tokeny type minions is actually far more powerful. So like, why can I not just do this for 1 mana, then include something that I actually want to play for 4 mana or thereabouts?
So this looks like the just standard token druid deck from HelloLeeroy, which I believe he brought last week, which doesn't involve Malygos. It may well do. The Emperor makes me think it is, but that will remain to be seen. We certainly didn't see Malygos played last week by him in his druid deck, but the deck lists are so similar now with kind of the Malygos. It'll be the Moonfires that will really show whether it is or not.
So actually, he gets rid of Violet Teacher here. Did HelloLeeroy get rid of Violet Teacher?
He did, yeah.
That strikes me as incredibly odd. But
well, I think that was what he was thinking. That's what took him so long, because he had the coin.
Yeah.
So, and usually when you've got a coin, but if he's thinking, okay, I'm probably against Zoo, I need to be looking for as much removal as possible early on.
I love that he uses a Lance Carrier in this deck as well.
That's
you so rarely see Lance Carrier, but you know, with things like Voidwalker and Markazar's Imp as well, like that actually can become a very, very effective card.
So what do you do here for Leeroy? Because you've got to be thinking a couple of turns ahead at this point in time. It may be tempting to go straight for the Coin Feral Rage and try and deal with this 3/3, but actually for me, I would be thinking a little bit ahead of that and saying, what can I do to try and force a swipe to be favourable the next turn, or even swipe to be favourable 2 turns on from now? Because realistically, I think HelloLeeroy is thinking I swipe next turn with coin, and then I play Maya Keeper afterwards to start to ramp up. So I'm almost tempted to say Living Roots just for the 1/1s at this
Summon
point.
the 2 1/1s because it might encourage the Lance Carrier to run into it
trade
and
into
become
it.
a 1/1.
Exactly.
Yeah, I completely agree. And even the Horse Rider might also run into one of those 1/1s. I mean, it shouldn't, but this is what you've got to think. You've got to try and put yourself in the best situation with that swipe.
He's actually just going to go and take out the Lance Carrier in general. Still makes swipe favourable, you just deal with it straight away instead of having to force Greensheep to make the move for you.
I think there's quite a clear play here. Yeah, Argent Squire into Direwolf Alpha, just continuing to build up that board, but also a fairly swipe-proof board as well. You've got the Divine Shield, you've got 2 HP on the Wolf. And it's going to start to really threaten this Malygos Druid because, you know, the Druid, you have to get toward that late game, and he's not really got any ramp in hand aside from his Maya Keeper, which is really an awkward situation for this kind of deck because you rely on getting that early ramp out. You rely on the Wild Growths, on the Nourishers as well.
He may even consider playing Maya Keeper and just summoning that 2/2, but that doesn't even feel great, especially when we can see that Argent Horse Rider is in the hand as well for Greensheep. But it might be one of the best options. You're just trying to contest as much of the board as possible, trying to get the best swipe possible later on as well, kind of reducing the health of these minions where you can, but nothing feels great for HelloLeeroy right now. He's forced to use a mulch on a Voidwalker, which feels absolutely horrible, but looking at what other plays he had, I mean, I guess that was one of the better ones.
Yeah, Fencing Coach isn't bad as a return here for Greensheep. He can play it and then get a free... is that the free
tap?
Yeah, the free tap. Yeah, so it's not the one that's 2 in 1 turn, or you can use it as many or twice or something like that.
Maiden of the Lake, I believe. Or is that... No, that makes it cost 0.
Isn't the one Garrison Sergeant where you can play, where you can do it twice?
Yeah.
Garrison Sergeants do it twice, sure.
So Bran Bronzebeard may force out a swipe here, because it's always a scary card to be on board.
Absolutely.
And this at the moment is a very scary board.
HelloLeeroy desperately wants a Wrath, right? Because you could Feral Rage and then Coin and Wrath. You could even Violet Teacher and Coin and Living Roots, but he's going to swipe straight away here.
He does have that Feral Rage to kind of get that extra 8 armor to try and get him further into this late game, and if he can get towards that turn 9 where he could Coin and Yogg, I mean, you never really know what's going to happen, but this is the trouble with these kind of decks against aggressive kind of or Zoo decks. It seems like such an uphill battle.
Yeah, and so far Greensheep definitely taking the advantage right now. 12 HP remaining for HelloLeeroy. We'll see if he's actually got anything to get himself back in. You can see he's getting a bit frustrated by this game. Feral Rage available, which would up his health back to 20 again, but what kind of a state does that leave you in? Because You don't even have anything else in your hand that you could coin out off the back of that remaining mana.
And he's used a swipe already, and that's one of the only Druid board clears that there are available. Hasn't had any Wraths early on.
I don't think you can afford to go for the coin Thorazin either, because you know that there's already 10 damage on board. You're on 12 HP.
Yeah, the coin Thorazin loses him the game, as we can see already. He has to Feral Rage, otherwise he's dead. Which he is. There's the Wrath a little bit too late.
And that's going to be it. That is going to be Greensheep managing to get himself back into this series just a little bit. Doomguard as well, just as icing on the cake in the end.
But this was a matchup that was hard for the Druid. Traditionally, Druid has always struggled against Zulok, no matter what variant it has been, especially the ramp Druids. So this was, if anything was going to be lost, this was the game that Greensheep would have got a comeback here. But now you've got, what's Greensheep got left? He's got his own Yogg Malagos Druid.
And Warrior as well. We haven't seen the Warrior, but last week he brought Dragon Warrior.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if he's got Fatigue Warrior, then he's saying, okay, I've got an alright chance here, just because it's got so much removal against that token Druid.
If it's Dragon Warrior, it also doesn't do too badly.
Well, anything that's quick, right?
Yeah,
just because, I mean, I felt like Leeroy, he kind of drew badly there, because you can build up an early board with Token Druid. You can get those nice early things.
So my only differences that I personally would have had in that game is maybe forced the 1/1s with the Living Roots, because you're taking out a 1/2 with Living Roots, it doesn't feel nice. And then the 1/1s, either you can trade into that Voidwalker, not have to use mulch, you can use swipe following. I personally would have gone for the 1/1s myself. The only other play is keeping Violet Teacher. It's like your swing card in a matchup where you're playing against Zoo. I probably would have kept that in hand, personally. And yes, it does look like it is Dragon Warrior, or at least, yeah, with some variant of it. And this is exactly the same list I think Greensheep bought against Boar Control he played last week. And he actually got double sniped into his Frothing Berserkers, which was which was an issue for him. But he won't face that issue against HelloLeeroy.
Yeah.
This is the start that HelloLeeroy wanted as well last turn. He's got those Living Roots, he's got Power of the Wild full up, he has a Wild Growth. I mean, so he's got the option, do I ramp up or do I start putting things on board?
Yeah, and running that Ancient of War variant as well, which against the Dragon Warrior specifically is going to be very nice. There's a lot of charge, there's a lot of very aggressive minions in Greensheep's deck right now, and that Ancient of War is going to shut down many of them. Execute in hand, though, as we can see straight off the mug of Greensheep, so it already has an answer, and I'm curious to see what he holds onto that for, because Dragon Warrior has a lot of very big threats traditionally. Obviously, you've got your Crushers in there. You've got a multitude of sorry, he's up against the Malagos Druid. There's a lot of big minions in that deck. There's obviously your Arcane Giants, you've got your Ancients of War, and then things like Yogg-Saron and things like Malagos themselves. So you've only got 2 executes.
I haven't even seen an Arcane Giant or a Moonfire yet, so I don't even know if it is. I think it might just be Token Druid. That's what I'm leaning towards, but the Emperor would suggest otherwise, but maybe we just haven't seen it yet. HelloLeeroy interestingly threw away the Power of the Wild as well. He said, look, I'm going to risk it for a chocolate biscuit, and he was rewarded with another.
Yeah, this is what HelloLeeroy's decision-making process was on turn 1. He was like, if this is Dragon Warrior and he plays Fairy Dragon, I'm kind of screwed. So I think I need to potentially think about forming the 1/1. And he saw the immediate glee when he was like, hey, I got something right.
And now he's got Power of the Wild, so he could Living Roots, summon 2 more 1/1s, coin out Power of the Wild, and have 4 2/2s on board.
Yeah.
Take out the 3/2, and you've got 3 on board.
Which I actually probably would go for, because you have Feral Rage next turn to deal with a Frothing Berserker, and suddenly you're looking pretty tasty.
We saw a similar situation to this. I think it was it last week? Might have been the week before.
You talk about the Tempo Mage one.
No, we saw the Power of the Wild come down onto the 1/1s, and we saw it was 3/3 Treants towards the end, or Saplings towards.
No, yeah, I do remember something like that. I can't remember.
I feel
if
like it was in promotions. I think it was promotions, but we saw a very similar situation to this, where it's like, you know, you think of this Malagos Druid and you think of like no early game, ramp to late. That's where I can come into this. But if you can get this combo specifically, you have a really powerful early game. Like, not many decks can get 4 2/2s on the board on turn 2.
Exactly.
Leeroy went face because he was like, what's going to punish me next turn, right?
And I love that he can use Feral Rage here just to keep that board control. And Greensheep can't even play that Twilight Guardian next turn, because he's got to be saving it for the Black Ring Corruptor, surely.
Well, he doesn't have anything to activate.
Exactly,
It's not even a taunt.
But I mean, you're like, if he doesn't draw something, he's going to want to put something on the board, and that's going to be a really tough turn for him.
I feel like you almost have to play Twilight Guardian, otherwise you just fall too far behind, but I guess that the hope is in the next 2 turns you will draw a dragon, you are Dragon Warrior. Corcoran Elite isn't bad, actually, because you force a trade, or at least some sort of response if you go into one of the 2/2s with your Corcoran Elite.
Yeah, Corcoran Elite was a very good draw. Very good draw, in fact. Because it should trade favourably. It may be the decision that HelloLeeroy just hero powers here to deal with it, and then he could Wild Growth as well so that he could play the Emperor next turn.
Or you could just power the Wild again.
Yeah, you could power the Wild, so you have 2 3/3s on board.
But then you do get punished by the Blackwing Corruptor, don't you? So.
Yeah. So it does look like it's going to be Wild Growth plus hero power. Deal with that, leave 2 2/2s on board, knock your opponent down to 16, and then your next turn you can play Emperor Thracian.
Does have Nourish to replenish the hand as well, but there are threats now coming through from Greensheep. He does have Blackwing Corruptor.
I was about to say, we're starting to get to a point now where obviously HelloLeeroy had a fantastic start to the game, but he's kind of running out of answers to just deal with the immediate threats on board, and he's not had that much to replenish his hand. Thracian doesn't even look that good right now when your hand is so empty. You can go for the Nourish, but you pretty much skip a turn. Arcane Giant, though, in hand now. Do you opt to just drop that 8/8?
It's obviously a temptation, but you get punished so hard by Execute that it almost instantaneously loses you the game to throw the Arcane Giant down for such an expensive mana cost and have it punished immediately. The question for HelloLeeroy is, do I play Thracian now and force something like an Execute, because I probably won't need it to get combo pieces down, considering I've already used 2, if it even runs combo, by the way, which, like I said, it probably seems more like a straight-up token druid.
Well, it's got the Arcane Giants now, so I'm still debating in my head as to what, if it's just like kind of a standard token Yogg, or whether he's got Malygos in there as well. I mean, I guess why not have Arcane Giants in there, right? Because you're doing so much spells. But I think you're right, Munch. Like, especially with Dragon Warrior, you can be losing that early game, but you have these tools mid-game to really take control of the board. I've been in situations where I've been leading a game by quite a severe amount, and then the Dragon Warrior was going, I'll just deal with you, I've got 2 Blackwing Corruptors in a row. It's crazy.
Yeah, and then as well, when you get to the late game, Dragon Warrior comes into an entire world of power. You've got your Crushers, you've got Grom to finish things off, often Ragnaros as well. Like, there are so many different ways to drop those massive threats, and the Curator obviously helps with finding those threats and finding more answers. But one of the things about Dragon Warrior, just as a deck in general, is it's one of the few decks in the game that really can change its own style to some extent, and it can be... I can't remember who told me that. I think it was Sottle that said this to me originally. It's like, when you're playing against control, you are an aggro deck, and when you're playing against aggro, you are a control deck. Obviously, he's against Malygos Druid, but at the start of the game, it was essentially like playing against an aggro deck, and the Dragon Warrior is more than capable of playing against that.
Curator feels really good here as well. I mean, it's such a crazy card, and no one really expected it to be as good as it is, especially in Warrior, where you can just use Fierce Monkey as a beast.
This is a tough turn. I almost feel like the play for me would be Fandral, Power of the Wild, swipe, and then I think you can fit Ancient. No, you can't. You can't fit Arcane Giant. You don't have enough mana. But I feel like Fandral, swipe, Power of the Wild feels a bit nicer and also contest the board a bit better.
And actually, I'm looking at this game right now, and it may come down to HelloLeeroy playing that Yogg-Saron and hoping for the best. I mean, the Arcane Giant is kind of our counter. You can see it started at 12, so it is now on 3, so we can see how many spells that have been cast. So it is going to be quite a big Yogg-Saron when he does come down to play it. So if Greensheep builds up an intimidating board here, there is possibly an answer in the old god himself.
We do say possibly, very tentatively.
Yes, we do.
So now an available turn for Greensheep would just be going straight into the face with the Curator. And you have that Dracnoid Crusher in hand to just drop down a 9/9 and just basically say to your opponent, you know what? Deal with my 9/9 or lose the game.
And that's why you need a mulch for HelloLeeroy.
That's the worry. That's what he's got to consider, though. He's only on 13 health. There is 8 power on board. Things like swipe do exist. If he's worried about Malygos, those 3 cards could be Malygos Double Moonfire for all he knows.
Exactly, and the way that HelloLeeroy seems to have had an answer every single turn, Greensheep will probably be thinking about that in his mind.
So what tools has he got to remove the whole board? So I guess he could Ravaging Ghoul. He's just going to put as much taunts on the board instead.
I mean, why not?
It always feels pretty terrible leaving a Fandral alive, but I guess he's thinking, well, what's the worst that can happen right now? And the worst that can happen right now is probably Yogg-Saron.
Does he need to play Yogg-Saron right now? Is he...
I don't think he needs to, no.
Raven Idol's a great shout, by the way, because it gives him so many options. We'll have to see what he comes up with here. Arcane Giant.
Another Arcane Giant.
It doesn't get
How does it work? I was
going
going
to
to say,
discount.
yeah,
It doesn't get the discount.
That's a shame.
Bite is pretty good. Feral Rage is pretty good. Innovate is okay. You could think about innovating Yogg-Saron, I guess.
I like Feral Rage because it coincides well, obviously, with Fandral Staghelm.
Yes, absolutely.
But it's whether he's going to actually... Well, oh yeah, of course, he's still got 9 mana, so that way you can...
Oh, wait, no, it does.
Innovate.
It does coincide.
Okay,
How
yeah,
is that one... Oh, because it didn't get It didn't get Therissianed.
So he's actually just going to innovate out Yogg-Saron, and here we go. Hope's End himself.
Demon Fire.
That gives you Fandral. Let's see how this one's going to pan out. The Flame Strike is pretty nice. Not 100% sure what that secret is, though,
Corrupted
unfortunately.
Heal Bot. Sap. That's not bad. Bloodlust. Wisps of the
So
old
he was-
god, but
He's been trying to drop that Arcane Giant, but I think the board was full, so he was unable to do so. 2 Hunter Secrets, obviously we can't see what those are. So I wonder what those are. So Greensheep, we are in the same position as Greensheep now. We are thinking, okay, what could those secrets be? They were both Hunter Secrets, just
they
to
were both.
clarify.
Yeah, we have a basic secret overlay, which is just happens to be Paladin secrets. So we're 2 Hunter Secrets, and Greensheep's going to be thinking what it is immediately. I need to figure out what it is. Freezing.
Now.
So you have to play Ravaging Ghoul, obviously.
Yeah, you've got an answer for this whole board, but...
Do you use the Execute, though? That's one question. And would you consider dropping the Frothing Berserker here right before you're about to annihilate a million minions? Develop a threat of your own, and it makes your opponent then look for an answer themselves instead of being able to play proactively.
For sure. It means you can then drop Monkey afterwards as well. And also you know that he can't do something like Feral Rage and deal with a ridiculously sized Frothing Berserker. Basically it's saying you have to have Mulch or you're out.
Oh, he does have the Mulch. This is going to be a scary Frothing Berserker.
Oh, he's going to Execute as well.
I was going to say, I think I prefer just going for the Execute and the Armor. Especially since we're against a Malagos Druid right now. There's a lot of cards in hand. And I think you want to try and get as much HP as possible moving on into the next few turns.
So what Hunter Secret is that left over? It's got to be Bear, Snake, or...
Well, it could be Freezing Trap either.
It could,
Minion, it could be Explosive Trap,
yeah,
sorry.
because Freezing was procced first.
But I don't think the Greensheep would mind an Explosive Trap right now. Extra 2 HP for the Frothing, don't mind if I do. Mulch is going to ruin his day just a little bit. And gets a Swashbuckler.
Actually, what could you steal that could be impactful?
Bad. Could get something like a Swipe.
So he's going to drop probably both Arcane Giants here, right?
You've seen one Execute, you know
You
that
know Brawl doesn't exist in
yeah,
Dragon
and
Warrior,
you know
really.
no Shield Slam exists, even if he could get up to that kind of level. And this basically means that Greensheep had to start dropping taunts and quickly.
And there is still a Hunter Secret in play for HelloLeeroy as well.
Absolutely.
Are we thinking something like Swipe?
Swash
Snipe, not Swipe. Similar effect.
Swashbuckler into Mulch would be great.
I think
Naturalize.
a good way to start this turn would just be to attack face with the 3-3, right? You get him below 15 to activate your Crusher, as well as check for that Explosive Trap. It's going to get Savage Roar, though.
Yeah, which does give him a possible 13 damage this
It's a
turn.
charge in hand, yeah. It's not quite enough to end the game, though, and with how much damage is on the board, would need to go for some trades in that scenario. He's going to drop down some taunts, and I think wisely so, and I think we'll look for some armor as well. And it sucks having that Sir Finley in hand when you quite clearly... Yeah, the bear trap comes down.
Interesting ordering that he decided to attack at the end.
Swipe would
Putting it on the board.
Swipe would be lethal here, right? So if he draws Swipe, that's lethal.
Oh, unfortunately for him, he's not going to get it, but has Nourish in hand, so can continue to look for that swipe if he wants to.
You couldn't get it. I think the best players nourish, see what you get, and then at the very worst, you innovate out your Ancient of War.
Yeah, you've got to be protecting your life total as well here, really.
There's the swipe.
There's the swipe.
Can't do it this turn. Oh, he is actually going to do it this turn. Is that lethal anyway? I think that's lethal anyway. Yes, it is.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, because 16 just from the Giants alone. That is going to be lethal, and that is going to be the end of this series.
Wait a
HelloLeeroy
second.
with a
3-1 win over Greensheep.
HelloLeeroy, to be honest, commanding victory right there. Comes in, does a little heart to the camera as well, letting you guys,
like
I hope,
that was
know.
to us. I'm going to hope that was to us. The heart. For all our support. Well, for the support that me and Keenan give him anyway.
I think it's for the viewers, mate.
I think it's just he has fans, you know.
I'm his biggest fan. I'm number 1 fan.
I need to stop being really. I will stop being smug, guys.
Yeah, stop getting these correct predictions.
It was a correct prediction. In score as well, I have to say.
I'm not even sure, by the way, that we didn't see Malagos, we didn't see any Moonfires. Unless they were just
it was straight up
in
token.
the bottom 3. I don't know. But, I mean, commanding victory for HelloLeeroy once again. He's done it again.
Absolutely. 3-1 goes his way, and that is going to be 2 series down now. So fantastic play from HelloLeeroy. He's now 2-0 in this group stage of the Premiership, and you know, he's halfway to playoffs right now. If he can get 4 wins, he will be in that top half, assuming that no awkward tiebreakers and things come into play. So good job by him so far, and we'll see if he can continue his winning streak. But we have another game coming up in a few minutes' time that is going to be mysterious